All right. Welcome to Health, Wealth, and Happiness, Season 5, Session 3. Dedicating today's training to my cousin Jean, who was diagnosed manic depressive and committed suicide in, I think it was March of 2008. And I wish back then I knew what I knew now about the power of communication, the power of asking for help, and how to handle people in certain situations as he went down his slope. Today's training is dedicated to Cousin Jean. In the replay, I'll make sure to put a picture of him and I together. We had so much fun, but that's the part of the mania of a manic depressive, as you get into the fun and they're like excited and going after it. And then you get the depressive piece, and that's not so fun and not so good. But it's shown up in my life. That's one of the first things I wanted to make sure we covered today. Second one is I'm not an ist. I love the way Brendan, our master high performance coach, puts it. I'm not an ist. I'm not a psychologist, a therapist, or any kind of ist. I'm a high performance coach. What coaching is helping you create better future tomorrows and then getting you sort of ignited and motivated and inspired to go after them. And therapy is more about working on things that are holding you up from experiencing your full life. Could be in the past, could be other things, whatever that is. So today I'm going to be more of the reporter and more of the role model and a little bit of the results expert in terms of what I'm hearing from other people, what I've applied to handle it when I get in depressive streaks. And yes, I get in depressive streaks as well. So I just want to make sure we kind of set the stage here for what's going on. And I also want to make sure if you have prolonged or deepening or just deep parts of depression right now, please ask for help. If you don't think you have somebody you can ask, I'm your guy. I'm here for you. You hear me talk a lot about this as we get through our training today, is that I'm here for you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I'm here to help you, support you, guide you, direct you. And if you ask, and maybe even if you don't, I'm here to coach you too. So I just want to make sure we kind of set the stage here for the reality of what this is. Today's training, we're going to go into some powerful ways that people have self-reported to me that have really helped them deal with depression. Interestingly, as I was putting this training together, a lot of these things help for people who have higher anxiety. So I wanted to make sure we kind of touched on both of these to give us that sort of fuel, that catalyst to go after bigger and better tomorrows while handling what's on our plate today and being real with what shows up for us. I love it because the highest performers on this planet spend a lot of time here and here. This is the High Performance Journal. I'll get rid of that. This is the High Performance Planner. And these are two tools to help us really articulate, share, even if it's just with ourselves, how we feel and how we want to feel. So to start off today's training, really critical part of understanding depression and anxiety is to understand what it looks like and how it feels. And before we get into any of our perspective work and our training and so on, I figured we would start there and we'd really kind of flesh that out. Before I get into the definitions, if you will, of depression and anxiety, I want to share with you the 4 kinds of feelings that highest performers work to assure they're in command and control with in their life. So if you have your notes out, get ready to take some. If you don't, get some notes. If you're watching the replay, pause it. If you're watching this on our premiere on Saturday here, go ahead and pause for a minute if you need to, because you can catch it up thanks to YouTube. Get your notes out. The 4 feelings. First, the highest performers are very clear about how they want to feel about something in advance, like the anticipation of it. To give you context, let's talk about maybe a family vacation. They think a lot about how they want to feel as they think about it, get ready for it, prep for it. Sometimes, if you've ever had this happen, the anticipation of something is better than the actual event. Second, they want to be clear about how they feel while they're doing it. So they're clear about the anticipation of it. They're also clear about how they want to feel when they do it. They spend time thinking about that. And they also spend time thinking about, we'll talk about this, a reset plan. If the feelings that I think I'm going to have when I'm on that vacation aren't showing up, here's the things I'm going to do to reset myself. The third area is they think about how they want to feel as they complete it. Ooh, that was fun. I'm getting chills telling you this because it's so exciting when we get in the feelings. How I want to feel when we're done is this. We crushed it. We rode all the rides. We had some fun. We played cards. We had great dinners. We talked a lot. We had great connection. And the fourth feeling, really critical, especially in light of depression and anxiety, is the feeling of how we want to look back on what happened as a future memory. Think about that for a minute. How we want to look back on what happened as a future memory. Now, I want to spend a little bit of time here before we get into the definition of depression and anxiety, because if we say, the next time I get in a funk, or the next time I feel depressed, or the next time I feel anxious, here's how I want to feel about how I went through that time as a future memory. And what that forces us to do, I've learned this as the Merlin principle. Other people, Dan Sullivan is a strategic business coach. He talks about the Dan Sullivan question. Kind of the same idea. You plant yourself in the future, you look back on you surviving it, you working through it. And then you think about and reverse engineer how you got through it quickly, how you got through it from the best of you. Does that make sense? It's so gold, that fourth feeling. So those four feelings again, how we want to think about it as we anticipate it, how we want to feel as we're doing it, how we want to feel once it's completed, and really critical one, especially in light of today's topic, how we want to feel as we think back on it as a future memory. Does that all make sense? That being said, let me grab our beautiful iPad here and get some definitions out. So first of all, when we think about depression, I just want to kind of paint the frame of what it is. Feeling sad or having a depressed mood, loss of interest or pleasure in activities once enjoyed, changes in appetite, weight loss or gain unrelated to dieting, trouble sleeping or sleeping too much, loss of energy or increased fatigue, increase in purposeless physical activity, inability to sit still, pacing, hand-wringing, or slowed movements or speech. These actions must be severe enough to be observable by others. Feeling of worthlessness and guilt, difficulty thinking and concentrating or making decisions, and thoughts of death and suicide. So in these symptoms, when we think about, this comes from the psychiatric org, the American Psychiatric Organization, these symptoms must last at least 2 weeks and represent a change in your previous level of functioning for a diagnosis of depression. So just kind of lay the land here of what that looks like. That's what that is. Let's flip over to anxiety. And anxiety, anxiousness, is a normal reaction to stress and can be beneficial in some situations. It can alert us to dangers and help us prepare and pay attention. But anxiety disorders differ from normal feelings of nervousness and anxiousness and involve excessive fear or anxiety. So the operative word here as we think about the anxiety that I'm kind of referencing here is obsessive anxiety. But the things that we're going to cover today can help with just feeling anxious and reducing it. And I talk about it down here. I'm going to just share it right now. I just read an article. I'll see if I can link to it in a replay, if I can find it, of where Adele was interviewed and she was saying how she was surprised at how many people had, especially women, had really laid into her for losing so much weight. Like they were upset about it. And she goes, you don't understand. Like I didn't lose weight to lose weight. I found, because I have a high level of anxiety in life, that when I worked out, that was the only time that I wasn't feeling anxious. But as I worked out and moved my body, and we'll talk about this today too, I felt less anxious overall. So it was like a self-feeding kind of situation where when I started, I was working out one time per day. Then I worked 2 or 3 times per day. You sense where this goes? So I just want to make sure we kind of set the stage here for what that looks like. I hope that helps. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into our perspective part of our work, and we'll tie it right back into today's topic. Cool? So before we do that though, how are we doing? What about these 4 feelings? What about the definitions? What's showing up for you? If you do not know it by now, our mastery community is a safe zone. You can feel open. You can share things you might not share with other people. So often I'll hear people say to me, Char, I don't think I should share this because, this is difficult. And I'm like, between you and I, this is a safe zone. What you share, I'm not going to judge. And I work diligently to not judge. And I've heard of crazy stuff too, by the way. Just insane. They'll say it too. They'll say, this is going to be crazy. And it is. And we're like, okay, cool. That's what's showing up in life. That's how you're doing. That's what's happening. Cool. All right. What we're trying to aim for is for you to feel heard, a big part of today's topic, for you to know you can ask for help from somebody who's reaching out, ready to provide it for you, to feel cared for, loved, to feel compassion, or I'm understanding what you're sharing, or trying to understand what you're sharing, and helping you. And to have that, we call that in high performance a growth friend. somebody who's on that hunt for you, taking care of you, loving on you. And so many people have shared, you're the only person that I can actually open up to and share these things with. I take that as a high, high compliment. So please know, I am your person. We'll talk more about having your person. If you do not have anybody else, I am your person. If you have somebody else, I'm another person that you can talk to and go after. So this perspective part, as connected to really powerful ways to cope with depression and anxiety, may really kind of provide some insight for you. These are things that have worked for me. Since I've gotten myself dialed in the last decade through the powerful process and application of high performance, I've had depressive streaks, but they are nowhere near as amplified as they used to be. And they're much shorter, typically, and I can pivot quick because I have a reset plan, and I'm going to share part of my reset plan with you as we get into that part of our training today. So the very first thing we want to do at the high level is these 6 areas are critical. And you heard the word purposelessness in the definitions. So I just want to make sure we keep that in mind as we dial in. So the highest performers, along with people who have shared with me, Char, I feel better because I've got these things in play. By the way, these are all part of our core sessions in high performance. They're all part of the book, High Performance Habits. Clarity, energy, courage, productivity, influence, and I'm adding purpose on the end. That's all these letters. So if you have your notes, I'll go ahead and write them down. And I want to walk through these with you once we have them documented. Clarity, energy, courage, productivity, influence, and purpose through the lens of our topic today. So when we think about clarity, at the high level, why we do what we do in life, we're clear about who we are at our very best. We're clear about how we want to interact with others at our very best. We're clear about what keeps us and maintains levels of success in our life. What are the fundamentals up here? In our high performance work, we're challenged. This is if you're coaching with us. If you've been through it, you know it. You're challenged to come up with words in these areas. So for example, one of my self words, if I'm doing my best, I'm joyful. One of my interactive words, I'm curious. One of my success markers, I'm focused. And I also have purposeful in there. So if I'm living in a joyful curiosity, feeling focused and on purpose, this is a great shield, if you will, for me dealing with depression and even anxiety. Does that help? So the challenge for you right out of the gate here is, how clear are you about those things? How clear are you about yourself? Who you are at your very best, if you were to describe yourself there. How clear are you about how you want to interact with others at your very best? How clear are you about you at your most successful? So often, we'll go right into this topic real quick, people are just impulsive and reactive. The highest performers, they're human, but they're also intentional. I wrote it up here. Impulse versus intention. They're like, okay, if I'm feeling, not my best, if I was to rate myself today as to happy versus depressed or sad, I'm at let's just say a 10 is happy and a 5 in the middle and a 0 is really down here in the negative neutral energy. I'm at 2. They're like, okay, what do I got to do to level this up? And so often just the act of assessing ourselves can help us level it up. Just to think through and use mind power to level it up. Other times, and I want to be real with this, we're so hopeless. We're so depressed. Nothing seems to work. And we don't want to reach out. We know what we got to do sometimes. We know we got to call somebody and ask for help, but I can't even get my hand up to go grab the phone. I got to see that level of depression firsthand with my cousin. Just a little bit of story for you here. It was back in 2006 where he was hitting some major hardships in life. And he was up in Tampa and I'm down here in Fort Myers, which is about 2 hours south. And I said, hey, Gene, why don't you just come down here and be around family and work for my company and do some programming? Because that's what he taught me in many ways when I was in my teens, how to program and how to do it as a business, which was my thing, computer programming back in the day. I felt like the least I could do is help you out because you helped me out. And he was good with that idea, and then he eventually did move down and we worked. But I got to see him come into a new realm and be like on it and go after it. And then I got to see him disintegrate. And I got to see a lot of what I'm kind of sharing here. So I do have some illustrative realities, if you will, from that perspective, but I just want to make sure we're dialed in. So clarity is a big part of this. Huge part of this, I've already touched on this, is energy. Mental, emotional, spiritual, physical energy. What Adele shares is when she's building that energy through moving her body and doing that, she feels better. She feels better mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And that helps keep these sort of negative or neutral downward spirals at bay. Not always, but that's a good thing to help us be in front of it or be on top of it or be able to cope with it better. Is that helpful? So I'd love to ask you, what are you doing to keep your emotional, your mental, your spiritual, and physical energy tops? Just a little frame, this beautiful ring. Thanks, Mike, for the ring, by the way. Back on my birthday, I think it was 2 years ago. He's like, Char, let me get you that Aura ring. You talk about it a lot. Because I was talking about it measures your sleep quality, it measures when you run and exercise and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, so now I use this thing like crazy to measure how well I'm doing and keeping things going. And I've been running this year, since January of this year, every other day. Either 2 miles or a 5K, which is about a little over 3 miles. And it shows me in there. Some days I've had to run 2 in a day because I travel on a day. Other days I may have spread it out a day, but I've caught up with it. But it's been on the average every other day the entire year. And that has really helped me come at life from a higher level of energy, a higher level of mental, emotional, physical energy. Does that all make sense? So how are you doing here? And I would even challenge you, what tools do you have to help you measure it? Just recently I got the Apple Watch. It's charging right now. But the Apple Watch helps me take that to a whole nother level. We'll talk about that as we get into some of our training today. Energy, critical, courage. And all we really need to think about through the lens of depression and anxiety is the courage to ask for help. The courage to be real with what we're feeling, the courage to be real with having our person, the courage to be real with asking for help. So I would challenge you, how well are you doing at asking for help? Do you have your person? Do you have the phone, text, email, whatever modality you need to be like, hey, I need help? Do you have a code word worked out? If I say this code word, whatever it is, I need immediate help, I'm in a really bad state. If I was to assess myself, I'm at a 1 or 2 in terms of feeling super depressed. And that person should be on it for you. And if you don't have that person, I'm that person. Just reach out to me and let me know. We'll get you connected. We got a mastery community of people too that would be your people. So I just want to make sure you sense you've got love, care, and support. If you feel like you don't, you do. Cool? So good. So good. Next up, productivity. So many people, and this is what was reported in some of the stuff that I was reading to you in terms of definitions, their productivity goes out the window when they're in a depressive state. They can't get out of bed. They can't function. So what we're really trying to think about through the lens of what we like to classify as high performance productivity is that it's not about us. It's about helping others. We do take care of ourselves. So there's that aspect of it. We love ourselves so we can love others. But in the bigger context of life, a lot of people have reported to me, Char, I feel much less depressed, much less anxious when I'm in the flow doing the work of helping other people. In person, online, or just in general in Facebook groups, when I'm just adding value and helping other people. And so often that gets people sort of popped from what could be a downward spiral of depression into a place of serve, into a place of purpose, into a place of really wanting to make sure that they're doing some good in the world. And just that little thing. If you went in, 2 people have reported to me in the last 2 years, when I started to feel sad or depressed or worthless, I went out there and I just added value in a Facebook group. I went out and I added value in a LinkedIn group. I went out and I reached out to a few people and I just talked to them and said, what is it that I could do to help you right now? That's high performance productivity at play. And it's also high performance purpose at play. Helping others, improving their lives, leaving things better than when they were when you got into it. Is that helpful? Whew. The eye of influence is to assure when we're stepping into helping other people that we're doing it 3 ways. And this is something that's taught in High Performance Habits. It's also taught in our High Performance Work, Session 6, the influence model, is that we're helping others on how to think. Big part of my work today is to live into this for you. Helping others how to think about themselves, how to think about others, and how to think about the world. So think about that for a minute. If you're in a place where you're feeling lower levels of energy, sadness, depression, and you go out and help others, and then you help them on how to think about themselves, about others in the world, there's a sense of contribution of good. People report that helps them feel better. I feel worthy. I feel purposeful. Some of those definitions that we talked through, some of those words that we were using in the definitions of depression and anxiety. So the challenge here for you is this. Do you have a list of things? And I would challenge you to put it in your reset plan, which we'll cover in a little bit. A list of things you can do to really go out and pivot how you feel through the lens of helping others. Critical conversation in regard to today's topic. So that's the big picture why of what we're doing today. We're trying to be as clear as we can about helping, being our best version of us, helping ourselves so we can help others. We're trying the things that bring the energy. Adele reports, I work out, I feel less anxious, I feel better. I know that to be true too. You probably do as well. Courageous, am I asking for help? Productive, am I helping others and taking care of my responsibilities? Influence, when I'm helping others, am I teaching them how to think? And there's other areas of influence that we teach. Am I the role model? Am I challenging them? You hear me do a lot of that already today. And then the final area is the purpose piece. Purposefully helping the world be better. That by itself, if you take action on that, one of the most self-reported things that help people stay away from, if they have tendencies to go towards depression, stay away from depression, and also pivot from depression. There's been reset plans that I've worked on with people who've said, if it's a severe or moderate to severe level of depression or sadness that I'm feeling, I got to get off my butt and go out and help other people. And they said, I'm going to contact my person to assure that I have accountability there. Cool? So I'm kind of painting a frame for the plan. We'll go over that in just a second. That is our perspective piece for today. How do we do? Would love for you to share in the chat log, whether you're watching the replay or watching us in the premiere, what was your takeaway, thought, insight from what we've covered so far? And is it helpful? Is what we're sharing helpful for you to really go after that next level? To have a good plan in play? Just a baby steps of what we covered. Were the 4 feelings helpful? These are all critical ingredients, powerful ways to cope with depression and anxiety. And on the flip side, powerful ways to live a full, vibrant, charged life like we talk about in the charge. Make you feel really alive. Does that all make sense? So good. All right, let's step into the training. Before we do the training part, I'm going to go through the reset plan. What we're going to talk about in the training is a way for you to assess yourself on a number scale. We kind of already talked about it. 0, I'm in a really bad place. 10, crushing it. It's kind of how we alluded to it. 10, I'm most happy. 0, I'm tanked. Does that all make sense? So in the reset plan, what we want to know is if you're at a 0 to a 2, meaning you're in the worst possible mindset from a depressive state or an anxious state, that you have very clear things you do and implement, people you contact to course correct that. Literally, you're asking for help. So what I would challenge you to do is say something along these lines. If you're going to draw this out or put it in like a note, contact my person. Go to the beach for a couple days. What I'm sharing with you, these are the actual things that are on people's reset plans. They have to change their environment. They have to let people know. They have to ask for help. These things all up level. So I'm going to paint a little bit of that frame right now for you. This is the worst. This is, I'm just not feeling exactly right. So these are some things there. And you also, on that reset plan, you know who your person is. Cool? So we've kind of covered this a little in advance, but I'm going to build into this as we go through our training. So the very first part of the training, know what they are and what they feel like. So we've covered that from a definitions perspective. Knowing what depression looks like and feels like, the kind of clinical diagnosis. But what I really want to make sure of, and we talk about this over here in the action list, is what are the qualities, traits, and characteristics of depression for you? Some people will say, I feel worthless. Other people, that's not a problem for me. I just get into this slump where I have no ignition, no vibrance around doing anything in life. And I'm ultra neutral or negative. And I just feel like there's just nothing that can excite me. Nothing. My favorite things don't seem like anything. Like my favorite food, whatever. and I'm just floating down here. Does that make sense? So I would love for you to take a moment. You can pause the video if you want. Think about what the qualities, traits, and characteristics are of your status, of what shows up for you when you're feeling high levels of depression, if you do, if you're feeling high levels of anxiety. Is this helpful? So often we can just describe it and share it with somebody. People have reflected on me, Char, just getting it out of me was incredibly helpful. That's what we're aiming for, this part of our exercise. This is really good meat. So if you document these things one by one, you can do a contrasting exercise. If you're feeling like, oh, I have no connection to anything fun. So the opposite of that is connection to fun. What is fun? So when I think about, let's just say, at one point I was depressed enough, this was before I got into high performance, where lasagna didn't even mean anything to me. And lasagna, as you probably know, is one of my favorite foods, especially Chibo's lasagna. Chibo's is a local place here in Fort Myers. So good, so good. And I was like, lasagna. And I hadn't had it in a while. And it was just zero sort of fuel or emotional catalyst for anything. But when I thought about fun and I started to take a walk, I could feel life coming back into me again. Baby steps. Baby steps. So it's important that we qualify this for you. So if you feel like sharing, you can. If you don't, that's totally fine. But we have to lay the land out for you of what these things look like. That's what the first part of this work is. So qualities, traits, characteristics for me, very clear. It doesn't come on to me like all of a sudden I'm like, boom, I'm depressed. It's a slow moving downward spiral, especially in the days when I got really depressed. And it was just, I didn't know of any intentional way to sort of counteract it. But I knew this. I would sit more. I wouldn't answer my phone. These are some of the qualities, traits, characteristics. I didn't reach out and talk to people. Didn't move much. Didn't want to. These kind of things. So every one of these things has a counteracting balance. A contrast to it. And even though I didn't want to do it, today, if I have any kind of depression, which it comes and goes in slight ways, just because I'm so in the realm of high performance, I've got, feeling depressed. I got to get out, double down. I'm going to go for that extra walk today. We get my butt down to the beach. I'm going to go to Chibo's and have that lasagna. And that works most of the time. Sometimes, as you probably know, you get in a funk and you don't know where it came from. It's just the way the human mind works. And it's freaky deaky, at least in my world. So if that happens, then I reach out to my people. And I'm like, I'm in a funk right now. My people, my mom, my dad, sometimes my brother, my lovely lady, these kind of things. So I'm really clear about what that is. And I let it go. I let it slide through. I do keep my practices in play through it. Meaning that I'm doing my workouts and I'm doing all the other things. But sometimes it just shows up, But it's really important, if you have a journal, that you document it, or for me it's like Apple Notes or a notepad or whatever that is, that you document what it looks like. So when it comes up, it's not a surprise. And then we have a way to counteract it. Is that helpful? The reset plan is a really powerful way to counteract it, especially if you involve other people. So I hope this is kind of landing for you. Second area is develop a way to assess yourself. It's through the lens of you creating a list of these qualities, traits, and characteristics and saying, hey, all right, I'm not feeling like moving. Check. How much do I not feel like moving? 5 meaning, I don't really feel like moving, but I will. 10 might mean I don't feel like moving at all. I'm not going anywhere. Does that make sense? We're just trying to create an assessment for it so we can determine the magnitude of our depression or our anxiety. Depending on the magnitude, we have different levels of things that we do to offset that. And I would always challenge you, these things may seem like, don't want to do that, don't even want to think about that. But minimally, we contact our person to let them know our rating. So the concept here, as we think about this way, this powerful way to cope with depression and anxiety, is to have a list of qualities, traits, and characteristics of when we're depressed, find a way or create a way to assess them, and assure that person, your person, and I can be that person for you if you want me to, be happy to, is somebody you can say, hey, here's my report card right now for how I'm feeling. And I just want to let you know things aren't going well. But here's what I'm committed to do. And I'm going to reach back out to you tomorrow, Char, and I'm going to let you know that I did these things. That can be the baby step of pivoting depression and anxiety. Sometimes, though, that's just not enough. our bodies are just like done. And that's it. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. Hey, I'm going to be off radar for the next 3 days as I just sit this thing out or chill. My grandma, the beautiful, vibrant person she was most of the time, Grandma B, there were times I remember growing up where she'd be in her bedroom for 3 or 4 days at a time. And I was told not to go bother her. Otherwise, her and I were like best friends, and she was always the one, hey, Char, we're going to do this. We're going to have this. I made you this. We're going to do crafts together. We're going to go have this adventure together. And I just kept looking in. When the door would open, I'd be like, Grandma's like, is she okay? My mom would say, right now, Grandma just needs her time. She needs to reset. This was when she was in her funk, her depression state. And she just needed time to reset. And the cool part was, though, is that we all knew and we were able to help her. She didn't need much help. Could you just get me some water? Could you get me something to eat? She knew she needed that time to reset, recharge, rejuvenate, and we just wanted to give her that time. Does that make sense? So it just depends where you're at and what that looks like for you. But if you need to tell your person, you know what, for the next 3 days, I'm just going to be off radar. I got to deal with this funk. I'm going to be disconnected. Totally cool. Just the act of knowing somebody else knows can be helpful. Is that helpful? Really critical part of this journey. Third is know your amplifiers and your triggers. So often, and I'm working with somebody right now who's very depressed and in a state of probably if they were to rate themselves at the height of depression, they're probably at a 9. And there's a bunch of things lined up, like just one after another. Somebody left at work that was a positive player and got replaced with somebody who's just a toxic person. The home side of things, there's a couple of people with health problems that just rose out of nowhere. In the other volunteer work that they're doing, that whole thing's falling apart. They're trying to get things accomplished and things aren't going as fast as they want. They're not feeling good themselves. It's just stacked. So really trying to understand what the amplifiers and triggers are. Just knowing them can be incredibly helpful to realizing, okay, so my quote is, my phrase that I say in my head, my self-talk here, is, of course this is happening. Of course this is happening. Why wouldn't it happen now when everything else is going south? Of course this is happening. Just me saying that brings back a little joy, a little cajole, a little bit of happiness. Of course this is happening. I'll make it through. I've made it through before. Now I can do that for myself. A lot of people can't. They need somebody to talk through. So what my challenge for you to think about number 3, and this is why it's in red, is you have to know your amplifiers and your triggers. Now, we've talked about negative amplifiers, but talk about positive amplifiers. If I know these things are stacking up, I also know that I need to get my butt out. My personal reset plan, every one of these realms, involves some form of the ocean or the Gulf of Mexico, depending on what coast I'm on. It involves the beach. It involves me walking the beach. It involves me walking the beach for a long time. It involves me sitting by the beach. It involves me eating at restaurants by the beach. This is my way of resetting myself fast. This is my way of amplifying the good. And the triggers at play are real clear. When I'm feeling this level of this level of this, and I would say in the last decade, I've gotten so in tune with my awareness for how I feel that these triggers happen fast. Whoa, I'm feeling this. And you know how you may have experienced this. You're just floating along, things are going great, and all of a sudden, a negative, darkly charged cloud just falls right in your psychology. And you're like, what the hell is that all about? Where did that come from? And it just sits, and it grows. And you're like, and it overcomes you, or can overcome you. When that happens, and it's happened a few times in the last couple of years, I'm just like, whew, all right, I see you. It's time for me to go into my reset plan. It's time for me to get over my people. It's time for me to move. It's time for me to pivot this thing. Sometimes it stays. The best of me was May of 2 years ago, May of 2019, where I was in a pretty good funk for me nowadays. And I just took my beach chair and my umbrella and went down the beach. And I literally just sat there. I'd get up, walk the beach, sit back down, get up, walk the beach, sit back down. Just kind of work through it. Work through that funk. Is that helpful? So often people just need to hear, that's what you can do? The other thing you probably are hearing is if you have these sensations, it's helpful to know you're not alone. You know? You're not alone. Even I have this stuff. So I just want to make sure that you're feeling that. So we've got these three critical pieces so far. We have to know what they are, what depression and anxiety look like for us and what they feel like for us. What are the traits, the qualities, the characteristics? Then we have to develop a way to assess them. And based on how bad they are or how intense they are, whatever wording you want to know, we've got to have our reset plan of things that work. And if you don't know what those things can be, that's a perfect thing for us. If you're a mastery community member, we'll talk about that in our roundtable to really own that conversation for you, to brainstorm, to think about ambitious ways. Two people I know, they're like, Char, if it's a 0, meaning it's the worst, like totally tanked, I'm on a plane to Vegas. Or two people said they're on a plane. One person's on a plane to Vegas, the other person's on a plane to Europe, when they could be pre-pandemic. And they're going to go explore the world because that's a pivot for them. Is that helpful? They just got it. They put themselves first in those instances because they know that's going to be the thing that'll help them be a better person for themselves and for others. Critical languaging here. So we find and develop a way to assess, then we know our amplifiers and our triggers. That's the first three critical areas, powerful ways to cope with depression and anxiety. Number 4 is nail the 4 essentials. The 4 essentials are the first 4 parts of what I classify and teach in my 10-day Health, Wealth, and Happiness Challenge. We also did it in the Starting from Scratch training, Season 3, Session 1 for Health, Wealth, and Happiness. Sleep, quality of sleep, dial up sleep. Second, hydration, drinking water, more water. Third, eating nutrient-rich, but also making sure your body's fueled with nutrient-rich vitamins and minerals. I'll talk about what's worked for me and what continues to work for me. And then number 4 is exercise, movement, getting out. And maybe it's not getting out. What I've discovered with the Apple Watch, they got this cool fitness thing you can bring up. You can bring it up on your iPad. You can bring it up if you have an Apple TV, which is how this thing works. You just like bounce fitness up to this. And it's actually an app on the Apple TV. And you can work out. If you say, I got 5 minutes to do yoga, then the trainer's there with you doing 5 minutes of yoga. It's pre-recorded, but I got 10 minutes of yoga. Okay. I got 10 minutes to meditate. Trainer's with you doing meditation. I got 10 minutes to do a high intensity training. Okay. 10 minutes of that. Got 5 minutes to do this. It's all there for you. So it's like, boom. And the stuff is done so well. Apple's crushed it. That's one of the core reasons I got the watch, which I don't have on because it's charging. But the concept is clear. You have to have that connection for you. Maybe it's just a simple walk. You go out for an hour-long walk at a moderate pace, and that's part of your 4 essentials. So just want to share. My thing is that I found these particular vitamins and minerals have helped me to dial in better brain health, but also just for my body type and my blood work results, vitamin B12 was critical for me to not feel fatigued, and feeling fatigued was a key indicator, a trigger, an amplifier for me feeling slight levels of depression. Like where I felt rested, like I wasn't tired. It's kind of hard to describe. I wasn't tired, but I was fatigued. Like I didn't want to do anything, but I was awake. But I wasn't sleepy. Does that connect? You ever felt like that? B12 was like the thing that put the air in my tires. Now that I've been on B12 supplements for the last 8 years, it's like that doesn't happen. If it does, I didn't take my B12. Next up is vitamin D. Critical for so many things, but a real critical piece for us feeling alive and connected. Vitamin D. We can get it through the sun? Great. That's my goal every day. And then I also take a vitamin D supplement. 2 other vitamins and minerals that have helped me, zinc and magnesium. I have a noticeable difference. It shows up on my rings report for how well I slept if I take zinc and magnesium within a few hours of going to bed. They're really helpful at getting me in deeper levels of sleep. Less of, if you have the Oura Ring, you know it'll show you when you're awake and you're moving a lot. Less of that happens. And I feel like when I wake up, I feel like I really slept. Does that help? Who knew? Better living through vitamins. But these are all little indicators or little things we can do to amplify the good. And they're known to work. There's a lot of reports online if you study depression and anxiety, those 4 critical areas, the 4 essentials. And Adele said it too. When I'm exercising, I'm not anxious. When I exercise, my depression, when I'm in a streak, goes away as well. I've noticed that. So hopefully that helps. So those 4 essentials one more time for you. Dialing in sleep. I get the best sleep when I have zinc and magnesium a few hours before bed. Second, hydrating. Making sure our body's lubed. Third, nutrient-rich eating. Nutrient-rich vitamins, supplements, minerals. We talk a lot about that in high performance coaching. Session 3 on energy, Session 8 on physiology mastery, really dialing that in for you and really sorting out what works for you and your body. And then 4, movement, exercise, getting out there, going after it. It doesn't have to be out there. You know, some people, they're like, Char, I don't know how to start. I'm like, start by doing this. Do 1 jumping jack right after you go to the bathroom in the morning, and do 1 burpee right after you go to the bathroom in the afternoon. Well, that's it. Just do that every day. If you can do more than 1, great. Just doing that micro habit has helped them feel better. Imagine that. 1 jumping jack, 1 burpee. Just 2 times per day. That's it. If you can do more, great. But that's been really critical for them getting their body moving and what their bodies are built to do, right? So I hope that helps. Really, really powerful. Nail the 4 essentials. And again, for me, vitamin B12, D, zinc, and magnesium are all critical at helping me feel better, be better, and do better, and stay out of that fatigue and that downward spiral-ish kind of thing. Might be different for you, but that's just worked for me as I've tested and measured so many things over the last decade. Thanks, Diet Performance. Number 5, create your reset plan. So let's dive more into what the reset plan looks like. Now that we have a kind of frame here for what a reset plan is and what to evaluate ourselves on, here's the kind of idea. First and foremost, I would love for you, if you're taking notes and doing the work, please write down who your person is or your people are. Take the time right now to write down my person and my people are. And if you don't have one, put me on as number 1. And if you really want to amplify that, reach out to me via email and we'll set up that mechanism for how that can work for you. Text, a call, check-in, whatever that is, we'll make sure we're taking care of you. If you're in our mastery community, you've got a lot of people, you know that. So please write down who that person or people is. And if you're not sure yet about it, please write somebody down anyway, and then we'll talk about this as we get into our challenges, to have the conversation with them. So first and foremost, if it's really bad, I'm contacting my person. I'm going to the beach. I'm going to stay down there for a couple days. That's my worst case scenario. I'm letting people know I'm asking for help and I'm out of here. And I'm disconnected. Because I probably need to, I've only had it happen like that, like I mentioned, May of 2019 for some reason, but where I really had to just get out and get away. That was a kind of culmination of things, like it usually is. The Onion, that play. If it's bad but it's not terrible, this might be more of, for me, lasagna, if I can spell it right. Lasagna. Man, I can't spell lasagna. Lasagna. Well, we'll put this. I'm going to grab my little wiper tool. I'm going to put favorite food. So for me, it's favorite food. Can't spell lasagna. How embarrassing. Plus gelato. That lifts me up. I don't have that every day. So when I have that, it's like an instant boost. And gelato, down at Gelato Co., 5th Avenue South in Naples. Hazelnut or salted caramel. Those are like my favorites. And they don't give you a ton. They're like the true European size, which is like that much. So good. Next up, again, I'm going to contact my person. And I'm going to double down on exercise. And all that means for me, just so you have a clear frame of mind, is that I go out and I run an extra run. And then I go out for an extra walk. And I might hit the gym. I haven't incorporated the new Apple Fitness into this yet. But for me, it's just getting outside more. And it's the number one thing that people have reported, if you do studies online, that when people are feeling neutral or negative energy overall, depression, anxiety, whatever that would be, getting out in nature is a huge solve. Like a huge thing that decreases that level of it. Does that all make sense? So 6 to 8 means that I'm feeling a little bit. What in this realm, it's about music, movies, and meditation for me. It's also about YouTube videos. At this level, meaning that it's a little bit, 6 to 8 is medium, like it's not way down at 0. It's just like, yeah, I'm just not feeling, I'm not myself. These things are very helpful. And I also would add on to that, and this is something that I do, more exercise here is really helpful. 9 to 10 is where it's just, it's a little off, like, or not off at all. but just things that I'm doing to keep the positive mind. From here, it's family games, family time, and typically when we do family time, and not so much lately just because of the way things are working out, but we play games and video games. And then here's also where, if things are just a little bit off, is where I'm thinking about the blessings of life and acting on one of them. I'll go into that in just a minute. It's helpful all the way to here for me to do gratitude work, which is another known alleviator, amplifier of the good. When I'm in that kind of funk down here, gratitude, like for me personally, that just doesn't work. I'm too far beyond that, if that makes sense. Like here, when I think about the blessings and act on one, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am within minutes of the beach. I'm in minutes of really great places to eat and really great walking trails and adventures. I'm on it. And that really helps reset. I would have to say, over the course of a week, I'll dip from here to here, just by the natural rhythm of how things flow. So these are the things that I'm doing most of the week. Oh, also, I'm playing blackjack. Like I'm learning from a master professional blackjack coach. So I'm playing blackjack a lot. I have a setup where I just go out for 20 minutes and I play that. And that really helps me get full concentration and connection with something that I find very enjoyable. Another game. Really, really powerful there. So that's from 6 up would be that. 3 to 5 and 0 to 2, these are different realms. I hope the reset plan, at least giving you an illustration here, helps. Big part of the reset plan at all levels is to talk with others. And when you get here, sometimes that's the last thing you want to do. And somehow you've got to command that motivation, that inspiration, that connection to go after it. So I'd love to know, I'm going to pause for just a minute, thoughts, insights, takeaways of what I've shared. Anything coming up for you here as we're diving into this? How are you feeling about this? Is this helpful? Is the reset plan something you can get like chops with, get momentum with? Is me learning how to spell lasagna hilarious? I'm trying to think how you spell it. Lasanga? Doesn't seem right. I don't know. Favorite food. We solved that issue. Kind of embarrassing. It's what happens. And knowing your person. Really, really critical. So do you have a reset plan? Or are you committed to making one? And if so, at the worst case, and if you can share, this is so beneficial because this training, I'm going to have it in YouTube forever. And I'm also going to have it in our Kajabi. But this training can be watched by others and they may go through the comments and learn. Oh, I never thought of that. So if you can share anything that you have as reset, recharge, rejuvenate, whatever that is for you, that may help somebody else. And that should feel purposeful for you. Good? So good. Thank you so incredibly much for giving me this opportunity to help you, to really go after some powerful ways to cope with depression and anxiety. I hope these are landing for you. Next up we have is know your person, your people. Always ask for help and communicate. I really want to spend some time here. I know for me, when I was working with Gene, this was the last time he talked to me was in March. I want to say it was in February or March of 2008. And he committed suicide, it felt like a few months later. I was doing whatever I could to reach out to him, and I was instructed by I have a therapist, so I was instructed by my therapist to just assure, no matter what he says, that you let him know unconditionally, if possible, if that's possible for you, which it was for me, thank goodness, Grandma and Grandpa for showing me that way, to let him know he's always unconditionally loved and the door's always open. Even if he said some of the nastiest stuff, which he did. I remember going to his door, and I'm going to leave out the explicitives, but I went to his door on one of the last trips to visit him. He only lived a few miles south of where I'm at. And I went to the door, and he was drunk, for one, and two, he was like, you need to effing get out of my life, and you need to stay out of my face, and you need to just get out of here. I'm going to kick your butt. If you come back to this door, I will kill you or die trying. And I was like, just know this, my man, you're loved, you're cared for, and if you decide you need help from me or somebody else, I'm always here for you. I'm going to go ahead and leave. But just know that. Take care, man. To which he was, get that off of my property, blah, 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 blah. And he slammed his door and went inside. Or went inside, slamming his door. And I was just like, wow. I had to do everything I could to not internalize. This wasn't about me. This was about him. And I just needed him to know I was this person. Because he didn't have anybody else. At least that knew about the severity of what was going on with him. That's critical. Now that's a outlier case where it goes so far down and they're on a toxic trail, if you will. At least as far as I know about this stuff. Again, I'm not an IST, so I'm just kind of sharing what my life journey has been about. But the concept is real clear. We ask for help. We communicate unconditional love, care, support, no matter what comes. It's so hard, and I'm so blessed to be able to share with you. I've learned this through the art of coaching, where you can distance yourself and realize and see through just the repetition that it's what they're sharing with you, even though it may be an attack on you, isn't about you. It's about them. Really powerful here. And if you want to talk that through and you're in our mastery community, it's in our Zoom roundtable, I'll be happy to give you the way that I was finally able to get there, to keep compartmentalization about what they're sharing with me so it's not about me, if that makes sense. This may be too deep for whatever's going on for you, but I just want to make sure you know. Because there may be a time in life where you're called to be that for somebody else. Is that helpful? Really want to make sure I dial this in for you. So know your people and your persons. Always ask for help and communicate. And the always part sounds so like, yeah, I can always do that. It is difficult to do when you're in that state. If you've been in that state, you know that to be true. So it's that time where you're just like, yep, it's time for me to reach out. Got to do it. And if you can't reach out to anybody, you got me. And I'm here for you, and I hope you know it. Here to love on you, support you, care for you, take care of you, challenge you, and guide you. Got people in our mastery community, lots of them, that would be more than happy to get in a group call with you, or you can get into our Zoom roundtable with us and be like, hey, here's what's showing up for me. I'm feeling really not in a good way, and I need some guidance, some help, just some love. And be open and honest. We have a really clear, sacred, safe zone, we call it. And it's in our 5th year now. I'm so honored to be able to tell you that. Really powerful there. So I hope these things are kind of helping. And the last item on the list is develop your needle movers. And I've taught this before, but at the situational level, so situational at the daily level, at the weekly level, and a monthly level. Now, what are your needle movers? What does that actually mean? If you're new to that language, I have defined, and I have my clipboards right behind the camera actually, situational needle movers that are my very best me throughout the day, asking better questions of myself. Hey, am I living purposeful right now? Hey, am I moving things along? Hey, who needs to reach out? Who needs to hear from me right now? And it might be a person. And I don't wait. I just text them or send a gratitext. Thank you, Karen, for the gratitext. Send them a gratitext. Hey, I'm just grateful for you. I just want you to know that. Sending you tons of love. These are situational things that I do throughout the day that keep me in a good state of mind. And they're in a list. Does that help? Like we're intentional, not impulsive. At the daily level, here's things that I know that help me keep myself in a good state of mind. Get my rest. Hydrate. Nutrient-rich eating most of the time. Exercise. Working on growth. That keeps me happy. The trifecta of happiness, as I've taught before. Learning new things, creating from what I've learned, sharing those creations. Learning new things, creating what I've learned, sharing those things. Living into that. These are all documented in my needle movers. Do you have documented a list of what you're doing situationally? A separate one for what you need to do daily. This is usually one time per day I need to do this. A documented what I'm going to do weekly. And weekly needle movers are great because that's where you can assess yourself. That's what I do on every Sunday or every Saturday night. So often I just do it from my head now. I'm like, how am I doing? Sleep, eat, hydration, eat. And I just whip through the numbers. This week I had a 10 for sleep, according to my ring and according to how I feel. Did well on hydration, did well on eating, well, except for Wednesday. And then on Thursday, I'm dialed back in. That's cool, okay. And then I asked those 3 power questions, which I'm going to share with you now, and I'll say them slow enough so you can write them down. After I do my weekly assessment, I ask, what did I get right last week? What did I get right last week? And that comes from a place of gratitude. Then I ask, what did I get wrong last week? And why? That comes from a place from accountability. What did I get right last week is the first question. What did I get wrong last week and why? And then third, what's going to change this upcoming week or next week? How and when? What's going to change this upcoming week? How and when? And that's action. Can you imagine 52 times a year if you assessed yourself in these areas that you've defined? And it could be beyond the depression and the anxiety aspect of things. But you have a way of assessing yourself and saying, hey, what did I get right last week? Ooh, I did the things. I nailed the 4 essentials. I lived into my reset plan. What can I do better next week? By the end of 52 weeks, you think you have an amazing list that would help propel this and really offset when just our crazy psychology dumps something on us? Is that helpful? So critical that that's lived into. Situationally, daily, weekly, and monthly. Monthly and more was things like, ooh, I did great this month. How many times did I fall below a 6 in my depression or anxiety ratings? Oh, twice. How long did it take for me to reset and get out of that? Did I give my body its time to do it naturally, as well as helped it? You know, grandma in the room for 3 or 4 days, that kind of thing. How did that work for me? Did well. So it's like a monthly assessment. What's my challenge for next month? Maybe then you set what we teach in high performance, 30-day goals. A goal. By the end of this next time, I'm going to go after this. Just so you know, my goal for October was to get the Apple Watch and then live into Apple Fitness and incorporate these 5-minute workouts at least 3 times a week that they have, just to get a rhythm for it, which I haven't actually done yet. That's this week's goal. You know, today's Saturday. We'll be moving forward with that starting tomorrow. So I'm aiming actually starting from Monday, but I'm going to try a couple of them tomorrow and see what I can do to get that to roll. Is that helpful? It's just so gold when we think about, these things. And I'm so excited about it because the way they do it is so classy. World class. That's Apple, though. At least in my opinion. So here's what we've got. From the perspective of ways to cope with depression and anxiety, we've got to be very clear about impulse versus intention. Impulse and what our brain dumps on us. You know, we can't control some of that. It just happens. We're floating along and all of a sudden our brain just has a different plan for us and it dumps on neutral negative thoughts, feelings, just sensations. And we're like, whoa, and they can overcome us. Got it. But what we can do intentionally is be real clear to know what those are and they feel like for us. What are the traits, qualities, and characteristics of what we've experienced over time? How do I describe them? Find and develop a way to assess them. Okay, wow, this has really hindered me from doing my work. This is a 3 in terms of at the low end of the scale. Like it's very much not helpful, makes me not do my work, and it really is hindering me from feeling good about life right now. Got it, okay. Now go over to my 3 to 5 and look through my list and start to implement. And it's so hard, I can only tell you, and it's so hard to just tell you this, but I can share with you that it's really difficult when you're in that state of the 3 to even want to go and do. That's why, at least from what I've heard and what I've felt as I've done this, it's really critical to let your person know. Hey, this is showing up for me. I don't know where it came from or why, or maybe you do, but right now I'm not in a good place, and I just want you to know. To which I would respond, got it. Is there any specific things I can do right now to help you? Can I send you gelato? Can I send you lasagna, if I can spell it? Can I send you something you like? Can I Uber Eats you something? Yeah, you might be able to. That kind of thing. Is that helpful? Nail the 4 essentials. Oops, know your amplifiers and triggers. What are the things that worsen it? What are the things that make it better? What are some triggers? And we can talk a lot about triggers and how to remove them or change them. That might be something we can do in the Zoom Roundtable. Or if you want to do a check-in call with me, we can do that too. Nail the 4 essentials. Adele, the vitamins. Found out when we're moving and we're working out. Some of this stuff mitigates and just leaves for a while and comes back, maybe when we're done. The vitamins help us feel better, nutrient-rich. Sleep, hydration, eating, exercise. If you rate yourself high in those areas, typically, not always, this stuff goes up. Like it goes up to the good. Create your reset plan. I hope we did a good job of really going after that together today for you. Owning that for you. Know your person, your people. Always ask for help and communicate. I think we've drilled that message home enough. It's easy for me to say that. It can be very difficult for you to live into it when life's showing up. develop your needle movers. What are you doing every day that's your best version of you throughout the day? For me, it's asking great questions. Great self-talk. What are we doing every day, at least once, that helps us be our best? Sleep, hydration, taking a vitamin, maybe a run, whatever that is. What are we doing weekly and monthly to really help us assess and plan? Create that vision. Go back to the 4 feelings. The anticipation, the act of doing, the act of completing, and then looking back on it as a future memory. That's good in these 2 realms. Then we have our reset plan. That being said, this ends the training of our work today. Let's go ahead and get into your action plan. Get a journal and document your mind and body's qualities, traits, and characteristics. It goes back to this. What we're looking for, and the way I usually do this, is line items. Just 1 item per line. Because these can be things we assess on. When you feel high levels of depression, high levels of anxiety, these are the things showing up. Sometimes we can contrast those. Other times we can rate those, or we can do both. Contrast mean if I'm feeling that, this is what I'm going to go after and do to sort of counterbalance that or offset that. If I'm feeling that, I'm just going to be real with how I'm feeling. Second, develop your personal assessment. From that, take some time to develop your personal assessment so you know the severity of the level at which you need to reset. Cool? So you have an overall average of, wow, this is a bad one. I've got to reset. Here's my plan for reset. I've got to let my person know too. So third is define your reset plan. Fourth is define your person or people. Let them know. Can't drill that home enough. Got me. I'm here for you. You got it. And number 5, make sure you ask for help. Take the decisive action to ask for help. Just let people know. One other thing I'm going to leave you with is that I'm not about controlling for a result. I was in my 40s and before, like my early 40s. By the way, I'm 50 now. But the concept is I control for openness. And all that means is this. If you call and say, I'm depressed, I don't say, get off your butt and go do something. What I say is, let's talk that through. What are you feeling? Okay. Thanks for sharing. Is there anything I can do to help? You feel the difference here? People who control for a result, and it's good to control for a result in certain instances, we teach that in high performance, but people who control for a result in those contexts sometimes can be really off-putting and not helpful. But when you control for openness, create a safety zone, sometimes that can be very helpful. Because I don't really need an answer. This is a critical thing I've learned about couples. Sometimes there's the guy who wants to fix stuff and the girl who wants to just vent. And she's saying a bunch of stuff and he's trying to fix it as she says it. I've seen this, I've coached couples and this has happened. And they're like, I don't need you to fix stuff. I need you to just hear me. Oh, he hasn't developed active listening skills. So this is a control for result versus openness. All he needs to do is just be there and listen. Okay. Is there anything else you want to share? Anything else that is showing up for you that you need to get off your chest? Versus, I know what we can do for that. I know what we can do for that. That's the difference. Is that helpful? Very, very powerful. Bonus, there is a website. A few people that I know have tried it and it's worked for them. Either moderately well or very well. It's called betterhelp.com. And it's an online way to find a psychiatrist, a therapist, somebody that can help you and kind of get the right fit there. And the only sort of pre-frame that I would give you for that is to assure you interview at least 3 people to find somebody that's a good fit for you. You know, when you're asking for help and you're going there, and it can be scary to do that, making sure you interview at least 3 people. Is that helpful? Thank you so incredibly much for spending some time with me and letting me at least guide, help create better perspective, vision, if I did that for you, through the lens of helping you cope or helping somebody you love cope with depression and even anxiety. That being said, what I'd love for you to do is share, and I'll give you a little time to do this, what's one thing you loved about this particular training? And if you don't want to share it in the comments, please let me know via email. I will also challenge you, what's one thing that you do above and beyond or not even on any of this, or have done, or have helped others with, or have heard that others have done, that can really help them? What's one thing that you do or have done or somebody else has done that you've heard that can help them feel better, be better, do better? Would love to hear it. Please put it in the comments. Because what we know is this, when people read through the comments, they're like, now I have hope. Now I have ideas. Now I can go forth and give them some things a try. And I've got people here that I might be able to reach out to that will be my people, that will support me. There's quite a few people that I'm coaching It's just sad in some ways to me, but real, the realism of humanity. They're like, Charlie, you have no idea. The reason I signed up for iPerformance coaching is because there's nobody in my life who I could even remotely share my ambitions and my goals with, who would not immediately be critical and negative about them. And in a couple cases, abuse me emotionally and physically. Like, you just have no idea. This is a place that I never even knew could exist, where I can openly share my ideas and we can build on them and create vision around them and create a strategy around them, create a plan around them, take some action with them. And when I hear things like that, which I hear quite a bit, more often than I thought I would when I got into coaching 10 years ago, like, that is the magic of what we do. So if I can help you, or our community can help you, we've got a lot of certified high-performance coaches, please let us know. There's an application down below. We're more than happy to talk that through. If you don't want to apply, that's cool. If you want to just get in our circles, I'm going to invite you to join one of our Zoom roundtables. If you want to join today's, just send me a note and I'll make sure you get the connection information. And you're more than welcome to join today's Zoom roundtable too. So please know you're not alone. There's people here to help you. We're your people. I'm your person. And I want to say thank you so much for spending this quality time with me. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care. I'm sending you tons of positive, love, and healthy energy, vibes, and thoughts. Have a good one. Bye. We rocked it. Whoa. Good stuff.